Sam McCracken from the men's Bible study class called. He wants you to help organize a retreat for the men. Now, he wants to meet you on Wednesday, but you're scheduled to go to Chicago on Thursday for that lay ministers conference. I just wasn't sure you were going to have time.
Oh, we've been talking about that retreat for 2 years now. Well, if the men really want to do it, let's get the details pinned down while they're still in the right mood. Tell him to come on in.
Okay, well, I'll squeeze him in around 3 o'clock, but I'll tell him he only has a half an hour.
Good luck. Sam can't say hello in half an hour, but thanks for trying. Listen, I think I'm going to go out in the neighborhood and make some calls this afternoon.
Oh, you just want to get out in that beautiful sunshine? Well, I can't blame you. But don't forget, you have that couple coming in around 4 o'clock. They're scheduled to get married in about 3 months, and they want to go over the details of the ceremony.
Right.
Look, I appreciate you coming by, but we're kind of busy right now. And these guys are nice enough to help me out. I gotta get this truck back by this afternoon, or they charge me for another day's rent.
I don't envy you either. I'll stop by after you get settled. I just saw your truck and thought I'd welcome you to the neighborhood and to the church, too.
Look, we really aren't much on going to church. I mean, you do a lot better off with people who fit into all that. I just have a different way of looking at things, okay?
That's okay. I appreciate what you're saying. I'll just stop by every now and then, and maybe we can talk about it sometime.
Oh, a man who likes a challenge, huh? All right, I'll see you around.
All right, Fred. Oh, Fred, I'm Peter Youngblood, Pete. Remember me from the church?
Sure. You're the guy that likes a challenge, right?
Well, I like some challenges better than others, I guess. May I come in for a few minutes?
Oh, sure. I was just about to have some coffee. Come on back to the kitchen. Now, my wife's going to be here in a few minutes. Sit down.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. That's always been one of my favorite prayers.
Mine, too. Cream? Sure.
Oh, no, thanks. I thought you said you weren't a religious man, Fred.
I said I didn't go to church. I didn't say I don't have a spiritual life. You ain't going to tell me that I got to go to church to believe in God, are you, Reverend? Oh, Pete.
No, of course not. Did your parents go to church when you were a kid?
Oh, they made all of us go to church every Sunday, and then they'd come home and talk about everybody that was there.
But not everybody who goes to church is like that.
Maybe. I've tried a lot of churches, Pete. Listen, I've seen people in real trouble turn to the church for answers. I cannot think of a time when I've seen the church people help them.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that's true here. It might be in some other communities. I couldn't say.
Now, I haven't tried every church, of course, but I've tried a lot of them. I have other ways to do what I believe God wants me to do with my life.
You're a real mystery, Fred.
Oh, that should be Joanne. Hi, honey. Let me give you a hand. What'd you do, buy out the whole store?
Just one more bag. That's not much for the way you guys eat.
Here, let me give you a hand with
That's
those.
fine. Pralines and cream, my favorite. Honey, this is Reverend Pete Youngblood, my wife, Joanne.
Nice to meet you. This house is a mess. It's been so busy around here, I just haven't gotten to anything this week with work and going to the store and all and getting Allison to Scouts.
Looks fine to me. Fred makes a great cup of coffee. That's the important thing. How old's Allison?
She's 6 and has her dad wrapped around her little finger, let me tell you.
See, Pete, my son's 16 and 18. They live with their mother. I'll tell you the truth, I kind of like having a kid around again. Honey, Pete wants us to go to church, and I told him I'm not exactly the church-going type.
He doesn't know what a hard case you are, does he? I'll leave you two to thrash that out. I've got to run over and pick up Allison. Honey, will you put these groceries away, please?
Oh.
Good luck, Pete.
Bye, Joanne. Fred, what makes you think you wouldn't fit in at our church? We have a very active men's program and a lot of social activities for couples, too, like pitch-in suppers and day trips. You and Joanne would enjoy our members, I'm sure.
What kind of programs do you have for alcoholics in your church, Pete?
The what? The alcoholics? We don't have any special program. I mean, I'm sure some people might have a little problem with drinking. I've seen a couple of them, a little under the weather, but I'd never say anything to embarrass them. What do you mean by programs?
Well, what about people who are addicted to drugs or tranquilizers, things like that that the doctor prescribes? Do you have any of those people?
Well, no, not that I know of. I mean, that's a medical problem, isn't it? I'd have no way of knowing about something like that.
So if there are any alcoholics or drug addicts in the neighborhood, they just don't go to church, huh?
I don't know. Maybe they do. I've been here for 8 years, and nobody's come to me with a problem about drinking. Maybe I just don't know who they are. Why are you so concerned about all this?
You're looking at one.
What do you mean? One what?
One alcoholic, a drunk, and I'm in your neighborhood, Pete.
Well, you're right. You're here. But I don't know what I can do about it, what I can say.
Don't be embarrassed, Pete. I don't drink anymore. I'm just part of that 10 or 12% in your neighborhood that's addicted to alcohol or some other drug, legal or illegal. And I'm one of the few lucky ones.
Well, that sounds awfully high for this neighborhood. I mean, there may be one or two, but around here you find mainly good, hard-working family people.
Well, maybe that 10%'s part of the group that you never see darken the doorstep of your church, but I'll bet my last nickel that they're here.
How can you be so sure of that, Fred?
I've already met 6 of them in this neighborhood, and I've been here for less than a year. More coffee?
Yes, thanks. These must all be reformed alcoholics, then, like you, if they're in this neighborhood.
First of all, alcoholism is a disease like diabetes or heart disease. You don't say someone is reformed from a heart attack, do you?
Well, no,
Most of us prefer to think of ourselves as recovered or recovering.
I guess I just don't know much about this, Fred.
Don't feel bad. A lot of people who should know, like doctors, don't. But to get back to your question, 3 of the people I met from around here were still drinking. In fact, I took 2 of them to treatment.
Treatment? You mean like a hospital?
Sure. When someone's sick, you take them to the hospital that specializes in their disease, right?
We didn't talk about this much in the counseling courses I took in seminary. I've done some reading about drugs, though, and we've had some people out to talk to the parents' groups and the teens, but it's just hard for me to connect you with the image that I carry of what an alcoholic is like.
Oh, it was hard for me to accept, too. And don't get me wrong, I knew something was wrong with my life. I just honestly didn't think it had anything to do with drinking. At first, Joanne and I had problems with our marriage.
Maybe if you'd gotten some help then.
We did. We went to see a counselor and then to a minister someone had recommended to Joanne. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming him. We never mentioned drinking. I mean, that's one of the mysteries of this disease. Is you do everything possible to blame other problems so that you can keep on drinking.
So what happened to make you quit drinking?
Well, I won't bore you with the whole story, all the jobs, all the cars I wrecked. Joanne met someone in Al-Anon. Then she stopped making excuses for me.
How long ago did you stop or recover?
Been almost 10 years. You know, I celebrate an anniversary next month.
That's great. But don't you think being active in a church would have helped you overcome it earlier?
That's the point. I did go. Say, what would you do if someone came to you and said they had a problem with booze, or if their wife came to you and said their husband had a problem? What would you say to him?
I don't know. I guess I'd pray first and ask him or her to pray with me. Ask that God would take away the drinking problem. And then I'd bring him over here and have him talk with you, I think.
And pray I'd be home.
You bet. No, seriously now, what should I do?
Read this book. It's the Bible for drunks. It's what we call the big book in AA. And here's some pamphlets, more information.
I'm going to be out of town next week. Maybe I'll have a chance to read these on the plane. They look very interesting, but I'm not sure that people are going to want to tell me that they have a drinking problem. I mean, they just don't want to tell a minister something like that.
Probably not, but if they do, you'll know what they're talking about.
Oh, I've done it again. I'm late for a meeting. Thanks for the coffee. And thanks for sharing with me. I'd like to talk to you some more about this after I've had a chance to study these.
Sure. Give me a call when you get back into town.
Yes, I did have a chance to read the books, Fred. Well, I have a couple ideas to run by you. That'd be great. Let me check the calendar. Monday night would be fine. Okay, now in the meantime, how about thinking of a plan for our church? Well, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe a way to make some of our people more aware of alcoholism in the community. Maybe some way for us to help reach out to them. Well, it's just a thought. We can talk about it on Monday if you want.
My name's Joe, and I'm an alcoholic.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us.
You're right, Joanne. I could feel the love in that room tonight. It was a powerful experience.
The power, I think, is in being that close to that many of God's miracles in one place.
You heard Joe tonight talking about being in a state of grace. I think all of us who are recovering feel that way. We recognize that without God's grace, we wouldn't have this daily reprieve.
You know, Joe, I was really touched by your story tonight. You really have a strong faith.
I didn't have any faith when I first tried to get sober, though. If they had told me that I had to believe in God when I came in, I would have just gone out and died, I guess.
I didn't want any part of that God business. All I ever heard about God when I was a little girl was that he sent people to hell. I knew all about sin, but I didn't know anything about love or forgiveness.
Yeah, when I first came, all I heard, well, really all I understood, was talk of a power greater than I. And I think it's really hard for newly sober people to take that power and call it God. I think it takes a long time.
But the power in that room was keeping all those people sober. But the problem was, I'd made so many bargains with God, so many deals, I figured he was out to get me. Otherwise, why were things so crummy in my life, right?
You know, I remember when it finally dawned on me that God had done for me what I couldn't do for myself. He or she had gotten me sober. That was the beginning of faith for me.
Yeah, I guess I felt that too. And then I started hearing people say things like, God as I understand him. And I started to form some concept of God.
So you got a different concept of God.
And a different relationship. It wasn't bargaining, and it wasn't fear.
See, it's like this. Leaving the concept of God up to the individual leaves the door open for Catholics and Protestants, Jews, anybody. It's absolute equality.
The sick alcoholic is too filled with fear and insanity to understand much about God, Pete. And believe me, the family members are just as sick.
But if you believe God was instrumental in getting you sober, why couldn't you find the same thing in church?
Well, maybe some people could. I couldn't. I just felt like these people didn't know where I was coming from. I felt like I was being judged.
But when we talk to other alcoholics, we have instant understanding, total acceptance.
A spiritual life is the foundation of our recovery. We feel it's God's purpose that we carry the message to others who are still suffering the same living hell that we went through.
And that's the reason I want you to think about establishing a program in our church.
Fred makes it sound like all we do is sit around and talk about alcoholism. He goes to work at the car plant, and I've got a couple of promotions at the phone company since I got straightened out. And actually, I have a real good social life now. I have more fun now than I ever had.
This is really a beautiful hospital, Linda. Everything is so cheerful. I think anybody would feel better here.
Well, not everybody. Some people have a hard time getting the hang of living without drugs or alcohol.
Focusing on special problems with counseling and separate units really improves their chances.
I can see where teenagers would have some special issues, and a separate unit for women makes sense to me, too.
Oh, here's Dr. Robertson. I'd like you to meet Reverend Peter Youngblood.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
And I think you know Fred.
Yes, I do. Hi, Fred.
Good to see you.
Glad to stop by to see what we do here at the hospital.
I'm afraid I do have a staff meeting. I'll leave you with Dr. Robertson and Dick. And give me a call if I can be of help.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Linda.
I guess I really want to know how to recognize the problem and figure out what to do.
Well, they don't just walk up to you and say, "Hi, I'm an alcoholic," do they? I set up a couple of tapes for you that I think might interest you. People talk about problems paying their bills, problems keeping their marriage together, anything but problems because of booze.
The mystery, of course, is why some people can have a few drinks, they turn into alcoholics, others just have a few drinks, period.
It's interesting, too, that just about every alcoholic seeks help from a minister at some point or goes to church trying to find answers. So you and your members are in a very unique position to help channel people earlier, Pete.
And then they go to their doctors, to counselors, and eventually to lawyers and judges.
And we probably never see the ones who need help most. Family members are ashamed to tell you how it really is, or they're afraid, or they've given up hope that it can ever change.
Maybe that's what we can do, offer a little hope. Hope comes when people learn they are sick, not immoral. These tapes are available for groups at your church if you think they might be interested.
Well, it's a great idea.
This is one time when I've been really glad to be education director. I've learned a lot. And from the turnout we've had, it seems to be a topic that a lot of people are interested in. Our group leaders are here tonight to answer questions you might have and to get an idea of what you think we, as church members, can or should do about alcoholism in our family and our neighborhoods.
I have a friend whose husband has a drinking problem, I think. She doesn't have anybody over anymore, and she seems awfully nervous if he's at home. What can I do to help her?
You could tell her about this series and what you've learned. That might be a good way to break the ice. Be sure to mention that you've met other women who've survived and that we get help and support through Al-Anon.
Well, I'm sorry, but I can't buy this business of alcoholism being a disease. Nobody makes somebody drink. That's free will, a choice.
Well, nobody makes the potential diabetic eat candy either. Many people can eat candy for a lifetime and nothing happens. But a diabetic eats candy, and one day the body chemistry reacts differently. Same is true for the alcoholic. A physical change takes place, and it doesn't happen at the same time in each person.
We say it is a physical, mental, and spiritual disease. All areas are affected. The real definition is that we can accurately predict its course if it isn't treated.
Well, I'm more interested in the young people, to tell you the truth. If an adult gets in trouble, well, they're old enough to know better. But these teens, some of them just children. They're being influenced by television, what they see in the movies, and that music they listen to all the time.
Peer pressure plays a part in the way teens experiment with drugs and alcohol, that's for sure. And they're using it younger and younger ages. Ages 9, 10, 11 years old. So by the time they're 18, they're sick.
Well, what about rules and discipline? I think it's time these schools started laying down the law. Well, we brought our kids to the program on teens and drugs, and I know a lot of other people here did too. But I believe it's time for the schools to do more.
I don't think we have to worry about that with our girls. They have nice friends. We do things with them all the time. I just don't think we have to worry about that, Harry.
Well, you never know, Inez. I say better be safe than sorry.
And you always think it's going to happen to someone else, not to you. But 3 weeks ago, it happened to me. My daughter was spending the weekend with friends where we used to live. We haven't seen much of them since my husband and I got divorced. Jody and I moved here right after that. Well, anyway, the kids were drinking. So from what I can find out, she did too. And they took some Quaaludes, so she took some too. I don't know if the other kids were just used to it and she wasn't, but she went into a coma. Oh, luckily their mom was home, and they called the ambulance and rushed her to the hospital. We had a very close call. I don't think I'd ever thought about anything like this happening to us. It's a good reminder that good kids can get in trouble with drugs. Some of the kids in treatment told me that they had smoked pot behind the church on Sunday nights, and their parents were right inside.
See, that's the point. Drugs are everywhere today.
Yes, Harry, and most people drink, but not everybody's an alcoholic. That's why we need to recognize the symptoms so we can help people.
Well, I just want to say that I, for one, really appreciate Fred and Joanne opening up and and telling about their personal experiences with alcoholism. It takes a lot of guts to do that in front of a group like this. It sure did make me see it a lot different. To me, a drunk was a guy sleeping on a park bench, drinking out of a paper bag. I never thought of it as a guy sitting next to me in church. It gave me a lot to think about, and I want to thank you for that, Fred. You too, Joanne. You're both mighty fine folks. Mighty fine.
One thing that's come out of the series is that Fred and Joanne have agreed to help out by talking with anyone in the church who might be chemically dependent or who might have a chemically dependent person in the family. They'll help them get in touch with one of these professionals if necessary.
Say, another thing we could do is invite these groups to meet here at the church. Well, there's plenty of room.
I wonder if we could print a little pamphlet or get some that are already printed with the most important symptoms and maybe those questions we all answered the first night of the series. Maybe it could just be here at the church with the other literature, or we could mail it out. It could have names and phone numbers of places for help.
And it could somehow say that we here care about people who hurt or have problems.
And it could also say that you can't wait, parents, until your kids are in high school to learn about this stuff.
Well, maybe something about not feeling guilt or shame, or that asking for help doesn't mean you're weak.
We may never find any member who needs the pamphlet, who needs to talk about this problem. But drug and alcohol abuse is, whether we like it or not, a fact of life. That's one thing I've learned. We're really fortunate to have professionals and people like Fred and Joanne who are better qualified than I am to help.
So you see, my story is really a story of change. From hostile to happy. From lonely to loved by all of you. From an agnostic to a man who seeks God's will through prayer and meditation on a daily basis. My name is Chuck. I'm an alcoholic.
Chuck, I really appreciate what you had to say tonight. I could relate to all of it. See you later. See you at church tomorrow, Fred.
Church? Yeah, some of us been going to this church over near Fred's. It's not too bad. Yes, it really feels kind of good.
Oh, man, I'd pay good money to see that.
Why don't you come by the house about 10 o'clock Sunday morning and go with us? You might really like it. You know, the people over there are really okay. The minister go crazy about you. He's a man that loves a challenge.